Scotland, South Africa this weekend on Sunday. What a game, by the way, to have on Sunday. We've got so much rugby happening, starting tonight with Ireland, New Zealand, loads of games on Saturday, and then even on Sunday we have an absolute blockbuster at Murrayfield, a rematch of the pool stage game on the opening weekend of the World Cup, and the two teams are out. That's what I'm talking about. Welcome back to the channel. Appreciate you clicking on the video. If you're new here, hit subscribe, make sure you don't miss a thing. Like the video, and all of you, drop a comment down below. How do you see this game going? What do you make of the two teams? And do you give Scotland a chance? Can they beat the All Blacks this weekend? I suppose yes, they can. We know that they can because they're a decent team. But will they? That's where it gets a little bit more tricky, I think. But I'll get into all of that. I want to start with the team news. I actually want to start with the box here. A few little bits to speak about. Moster and Snyman return. Snyman on the bench, Moster is starting, and Quagga Smith makes his 50th appearance for the Springboks. What a servant he has been to this team over the years. Often having to come off the bench, he hasn't necessarily always been a starter, but the role he plays in this team, in Rassie Erasmus's team, is pretty vital, and he makes that milestone this weekend. I think the big headline from the South African point of view is 7-1. It's back. 7-1 bench split. What we saw last year, what they did in the World Cup final, they have gone for 7 forwards and 1 back on the bench. I always say when they go for a 7-1 bench, it gets so many people talking, doesn't it? It creates headlines, it creates discussion. But the big question is why? Because it's not a gimmick. It's not something they do just to be controversial. There is a reason for this. Rassie Erasmus thinks a 7-1 bench split is the best chance for his team to beat Scotland at Murrayfield this weekend. So why is that? What is he thinking? And frankly, let's be honest, it's power, power, power. Look at that bench for the box. In that you've got Jasper Wiese, Peter Steph du Toit, Sia Khaleesi, RJ Snyman, plus then Cox, Steenkamp and Marks as your front row replacements. That is a serious amount of quality and power for Scotland having to deal with in the latter half of that game, whenever they come on, whether it's for the final half an hour, 20 minutes, however they look to use those substitutes. That power coming on, I think, is going to be, it would be a challenge for any team in the world to be able to deal with that and match it, let alone better it. So I think that's what it comes down to, because Scotland, we know, and I'll get onto their team selection in just a moment, they've got some great attacking players, they have some really good forwards as well. It's not that they don't have power in their team, but I'm just not sure if they have the power to match it. And that's probably my big question really. When we look at this game, when we talk about the result, when we talk about how can Scotland win, can they live with the power game? That's the big question for me. And I'm not sure they can. That's why I feel South Africa will win this game. Now, I don't think it'll be easy, obviously. Scotland at Murrayfield, they've been a tough team to beat over the years. I know South Africa have a really good record against them. I think 2010, their last defeat to Scotland. But I'm just not sure that Scotland will be able to live with that power game. And I think when you look at the South African team more generally, when you look at Jaden Hendrickse as the 9, Andre Pollard as the 10, even Willie le Roux at fullback, Makazole Mapimpi on one of the wings, Esterhuizen and Lukhanyo Am as the centres. I think this is a team designed to dictate and control the game, rather than having your Kurtley Aronses, your Cheslin Colbys. I know Keenan Moody is there. He is probably one of those players that is a bit more explosive and a bit more exciting. But I just look at this team, and to me, it's about control and it's about power. And I think that is what South Africa are going to try and do to Scotland this weekend. And it will be fascinating to see how Scotland go about trying to deal with that. They know what's coming at them, right? When you look at that team, Scotland know for the sort of afternoon they are in for, the sort of challenge that they are faced with. This is the Scotland team that Gregor Townsends has gone with. I suppose one of the things that jumped out to me, first of all, when viewing, is Tom Jordan at fullback. So Blair Kinghorn is back, but he's on the wing. I guess the loss of Darcy Graham is a pretty big one for Scotland. So Tom Jordan, who made his debut last week, starts at fullback. What a challenge for him, particularly if South Africa are going to approach the game in a way that I'm suggesting in terms of dictating and controlling. And their kicking game, I think, is going to be key with the likes of Pollard there and Willie le Roux at fullback. That is a huge challenge for Tom Jordan. I like what I've seen of him. I haven't seen loads, obviously, him playing for Glasgow. I like what I've seen of him, but that is a big old challenge for him to have to try and deal with. And how do Scotland approach this? How do they get their attacking game flowing? I think their kicking game is going to be crucial here, actually. When I was at Twickenham last weekend for the New Zealand game, it was really interesting to me that New Zealand had obviously identified the possibility of the crossfield kick or the kick pass and space in England's defence there. I just wonder what Scotland have uncovered looking at this Springboks defence as ways that they can try and get round it, because I'm just not sure they're going to be able to purely punch holes through it, through the middle. The one other thing actually I want to mention with Scotland is the bench, because I think it is a concern. If you compare the benches and you compare the 7-1 split, I think it's pretty tough. I think that front row for Scotland is going to have to do quite a lot of heavy lifting, in particular Xander Fagerson on the tight head side and even Ewan Ashman at hooker as well. When you look at Dylan Richardson and Elliot Miller-Mills, I feel like that is a weakness for me when you compare these two teams. And I've mentioned how does Scotland approach this game. Let's cast our minds back to the World Cup. I was fortunate enough to be in Marseille for that game, opening weekend, Scotland against South Africa. It was a Scotland team that, like this one, had a lot of their best attacking players available. And so the question was, how does this Scotland attack, run by Finn Russell, we know how dangerous they can be, how are they able to find ways to get round South Africa, to cause them problems in attack? And frankly, the box suffocated them. Nothing really went right from a Scotland point of view, and that was mostly down to the great work that the South African players did in just absolutely shutting them down, shutting Finn Russell down. That, for me, is where Scotland have to be better this weekend. What have they seen? Is it the kicking game? How do they gain momentum and get themselves front football to be able to cause South Africa problems? Now, the fact that they're at home, I think, makes a difference. I don't think they will get completely suffocated in the way in which they were in Marseille, but they have to find ways to be able to fire some shots of their own, whilst also not getting completely overwhelmed from a power point of view. And actually, to be fair to this Scotland team, I think against a lot of other sides in the world, they've done quite a good job over the last few years of in terms of their own power game and what they've brought. They're not a side that get completely blown away. I just think with South Africa, it's a different challenge. It's a different beast. And that, for me, is where my concerns are when you look at this team. But obviously, last week's game from a Scotland point of view was outside the test window. So Ben White returns, Finn Russell returns. So I think gutted that Darcy Graham's not there after scoring 4 tries. So Kinghorn on the wing. I think it's going to be really intriguing. I'm going to leave it there. Let me know what you make of it. Do you think that is ultimately what it comes down to? How Scotland can deal with the power game? And is that ultimately why South Africa have gone for a 7-1 split on the bench? Let me know. Let me know in the comments section. How do you see this game going? Like the video as well. And whilst you're here, just hit that subscribe button. If you subscribe to the channel, I would absolutely love it and appreciate it. Appreciate you watching. I'll see you in the next one.